Welcome to the Cash Flow Project Podcast. Are you looking to better your financial situation by increasing your cash flow? Too busy to hunt for real estate deals or don't know where to start? Then you're in the right spot. Join us as we dive in and talk about investing for cash flow using multifamily real estate.
Welcome to the Cash Flow Project Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Fierros with Tri-City Equity Group. With me is my co-host, Matt Callahan. Today, we've got some special guests on the show. We've got a husband and wife team, Greg and Kim Scully. Guys, welcome to the show. Glad to have you guys on.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm just going to read a little bit of you, some background on you guys. You've got a ton of things going on, which is pretty awesome. I love the experience. And so I'm sure we'll get into some of that as we go. But just to give our listeners a little bit of background on who Greg and Kim are. Greg's a former small business owner. He's retired after a 20-year career with Frito-Lay. That just kind of piques my curiosity because, I don't know how much on the, if I know you did sales, but I'm 100% sure you got to have some bags in the car, just like much. Anyway, I love Fritos.
Kim was at Frito-Lay.
Oh, Kim was at Frito-Lay.
No, it was Greg. You're right.
It was, I thought it was Greg.
You're right, Steve. Yeah, it was.
Okay. So they transitioned into multifamily, which is pretty awesome. The current ownership interest in over 150 units in Tennessee, 68 units in Kansas. So they're definitely working kind of the area down there. Super popular area right now, right? It's a huge growth.
Yeah.
Market value of $15 million. So Greg's also participated in land development projects, South Carolina, multifamily property in Indiana, and multiple active flips in the Tri-Cities area. So him and his partner, Darren Light, both, they also have a podcast. So we'll make sure to put that in the show notes so you guys can check that out, the Real Wealth Solutions podcast. They're also active locally. So they host a meet twice a month. So if you guys are, local to where they're at, definitely make sure you check them out. They're focusing on multifamily investing, Eastern Tennessee, and kind of surrounding areas there. So definitely make sure that you guys are, plugging in, checking them out, especially if you're in that neck of the woods. So Kim, they both, her and Greg, been investing in real estate since 2016, and Kim actually made the move full time into real estate investing in 2019, right? Sorry.
When we moved down here, basically. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, nice,
Yep.
Nice, very cool. Well, so kind of with all that said, it's a mouthful, and it's like I said, I love the experience that you guys have. And we were just talking a little bit, kind of off camera, about your move from Alaska right down to the Tennessee area. So that's a pretty huge jump. Glad to have you guys on the show. So we're excited to hear a little bit more about your background and your story. So
Cool. Right on.
all right.
Great. Sounds good.
So, as we kind of dive in a little bit deeper into who you guys are and, how did you get started in, your journey into, earning passive cash flow, real estate? Where did that come from? You went from Frito-Lay and optometry to real estate. It's a pretty different field. So tell us a little bit about the journey and kind of how that got kickstarted.
Yeah. I'll start, Kim. I was doing the full-time Frito-Lay thing as our kids got a little bit older into their high school career. One was headed off to college. We decided we would open a small business. The entrepreneurship has kind of always been in the back of my mind for something that I wanted to do. So we had a small women's retail shop in Palmer, Alaska for about 3 years. That never took off. It never got over the hump. We got out of it without losing our shirt and considered it our business education by doing rather than by going to school for it. So this
wasn't like bikinis in Alaska or anything. Okay.
No.
I was just okay. All right, just making sure.
it was resale, organic, and fair trade women's clothing.
My wife would have been a customer, 100%.
It was cool.
Alaska.
Kim was definitely the face of it, and then I would do more of the back end stuff because it was sometimes awkward being a middle-aged man in a women's retail fashion store for, I think, all parties involved. So
You did fine.
Oh, I did fine, but I mean the customer experience thing sometimes,
It helped, but it did help that we were
walk in the door.
But it helped that we had been in the community for a long time. So most people knew us,
that's true.
right? So that wasn't.
Palmer's not too large, Right.
It's pretty small.
No, it's not. I mean, we're in the valley is what they called it in Alaska. And it's, there's 100,000 people in like a 50-mile radius, but they're pretty well spread out. Yeah. Palmer had, 10,000 people in and around the area. So not a huge metropolis.
So that dipped your toes into the business.
Yeah, that dipped the toes in the business thing. We realized that was not going to pan out. We also realized it was not really what we wanted. As we kind of figured out, our long-term plans, we wanted more of the optionality. We realized if we had one retail store, unless it really took off, it was very likely that we were going to be having to operate it. So that's not really what we wanted long-term. Once we kind of got into our long-term goals, we're like, okay, this is not the vehicle. So we that's when we started into real estate. It started with a San Merrill flip this house in Anchorage, Alaska, where they throw in whatever city the event is with the bad editing. But I'm like, hey, whatever, it's free, or whatever. It was $97. I'm just going to go down the rabbit hole and see what this is all about. So that's how it got started. And our first purchases were actually turnkey single family houses in Memphis. So we got some capital. Let's deploy it. Let's see if we even enjoy this asset class.
Nice. So that's quite a bit of distance away. You guys were operating from, that's thousands of miles. I'm trying to think. Obviously I'm here in Hawaii, and we own property in the mainland, of course. But I know the challenges that could come along with it. So, that's a step that most people aren't comfortable taking. I don't think. I know I find a lot of people here locally that they don't want to go outside of something that they can't see and can't touch. It's a pretty big leap of faith on you guys' end. My guess is that there was a driving why behind like taking some additional action. What has been kind of that why for you guys? Now, obviously, you probably maybe have individual whys, but you have together as a couple, which is also a very unique dynamic. I want to ask you guys a little bit more about that later. But what was kind of the underlying motivation for that, working at such a distance, taking steps that people weren't?
Why don't you take that one, Kim? I'm not sure what your why is.
Well, I think as far as going that long distance for us, it made sense, right? So we vetted the company we were using and all of that. So we knew enough about where we were going that we were good with that. Why we did that, I think Greg has mentioned it a couple of times in other places. My grandfather did a wonderful thing, and his whole life plan was legacy and to provide for us as his grandchildren and in his great grandchildren. And I think wanting to replicate that legacy and that gift, he was an amazing businessman, and he started in real estate. And I think watching and learning as we learned, that was part of it. My personal why is a couple of different pieces to it. So Greg worked for 20 years at a job that he didn't love going to every day, so that I could stay home and raise our kids. Part of my why is supporting what makes him happy, which in turn has made me a happier person because I live with a happier person. But I also want to have that ability to work where I want, when I want, with who I want, as often as I want. And those things are difficult to find outside of the real estate. It's not creating a job for yourself. It's creating something bigger than what you normally would consider a job.
Like that. That's great. And that's actually really powerful. I think that's huge too. Like, you guys have that unique dynamic of being a husband and wife team. My wife and I work a lot with premarital. We teach classes for our church, basically. And so we work with a lot of couples that are kind of just getting, either contemplating marriage or, they're in that early stage. And so they're still kind of in that lovey-dove kind of, fairy tale kind of thing. And it's like, okay, well, that's going to last a little bit, but then you got to put some meat to that.
Sure.
But that's a huge one. Honoring your husband, honoring your spouse, I think is a pretty massive thing that will, benefit, of course, you on a personal level, but obviously you guys will benefit, that carries over to the business as well. So I think that's huge. And that's awesome. I love the legacy piece too. That's a huge one for me. And, I think when we have kids and we kind of get that, that's awesome that you guys were shown that, and you had that kind of forerunner to be able to say, okay, well, look, this is what's possible, right? Because I think for a lot of people, especially now, especially we're talking, if we're dealing with like millennials and that kind of stuff, like home ownership has kind of been further away. Like, it's more of a pipe dream, I think, for more and more people. So that helps us on the business side in terms of renting, right?
Sure.
But it's a powerful piece, a legacy piece, a generational piece, and that comes through owning real estate.
It
right.
does.
So,
and it allows them to make some choices that are with less constraints, right? You can choose where you want to go to school. You can choose where you want to live, and you don't have to think about, wow, how am I going to pay for that?
oh, totally.
You know?
Yeah,
And they also-
he did a great example too. Is that it just wasn't given away; it was conditional, not like strings attached, but it was kind of performance based. When you finish school, I'll reimburse you for your loans that you took out. It was a great combination of you had to do the work along the way, and then when you reached a goal, it'd be taken care of.
No, that's huge, and that's actually really. I actually really. I value that because I think a lot of people in this space, or a lot of people I think are successful in business, sometimes are reluctant to pass stuff on to the kids because they know it's like the kind of the immigrant mindset or kind of that first generation, like successful business owner, entrepreneur kind of deal where it's like, yeah, the kids don't want the business or they don't understand the work ethic and kind of what it took to actually get that success. So kind of building in some of those no, you still got to do the work. Like this doesn't come for free as long as you're kind of taking the steps that you need to.
Right.
That's great.
It's a partnership. It was a partnership.
Yeah.
And he was
totally.
he was very interested in where you wanted to go, what you wanted to study. And as soon as he saw where you wanted to go, he encouraged you, our kids, straight through. I mean, it was pretty amazing.
That's awesome. Well, Greg, how's it been? I'll put this back on you. How's it been working? Well, maybe this is probably a good question for Kim too, but how's it been working with your wife in the business? Like now that you guys have this, you kind of did your thing, obviously working this, the sales and kind of having the corporate job. How's it been as you've transitioned, let's say, into having a business together, like learning to work with that dynamic of working with your spouse?
It's been very good. It hasn't always been easy though, because it's a 24/7 thing. So we're having dinner, we're talking business, we're doing stuff. And sometimes it's difficult to turn it all off or there's the emotions overflow.
Nicely
Because there's a different dynamic that we have than if we were just coworkers. And so, we know each other extremely well. We also know how to get under each other's skin or whatever. And not purposely or anything, but sometimes purposely.
Never.
Yeah. So it can be challenging. I mean, it's great though. Probably one of the most difficult things is to not work all the time.
Mm-hmm.
There can be a tendency to just work all the time, which doesn't necessarily mean we're getting a lot done, because that's one of my main focuses recently is executing very intentionally and deliberately so that we're not just working all the time.
Yeah, I would think that'd be really easy to do because it's like, well, it's the family business, right? And so like you guys are both involved, you're both plugged in. And, we talked a little bit earlier too, right? Like I know your kids are kind of off kind of doing their own thing now, right? So, super easy to just, okay, yeah, let's 24/7, we can pound at it and just not take, time away.
And I think it's hard too to say, okay, well, we're going to work on Sunday, but then we'll hike on Wednesday. The weather's supposed to be nice on Wednesday. Let's do that. It's that second half follow through, right? Mm-hmm. It's the actually going to go hiking and not continuing to work too.
Because something I'm sure came up by Wednesday that needs to be taken care of. That comes with the territory, especially, as much property as you guys, have under management now, right? So
but we're not in the emergency services. We're not talking planes out of the sky that need trouble. Yeah, you have to be disciplined a little bit to say this can wait till tomorrow or whatever.
That's good.
Yeah, but it's hard. I mean, it's a constant reminding myself is you got to guard your time a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think that's the one thing that I've seen is
I mean, you guys have young kids and stuff, so
I think you'll ask any of the partners. I think you'll ask any of us, and it's like that's a challenge. Like,
yeah, right.
But it's even a challenge when the kids are big. When we had our retail shop, the kids still lived at home, and they were both in high school, and they still needed time and attention. I mean, it never changes when you have other people living with you.
Yeah. And one kind of lesson from like the whole family business thing is we opened the shop and I'm like, oh, the kids will work there and everything will be great. They didn't have a lot of interest in working there. They did because, it was an obligation to their parents that they felt like they had to, and they did a fine job at it and stuff. But it was a massive miscalculation to think that everybody is going to be in all the time on a single idea just because you do it. So, we're very lucky that the interest in real estate and what we're doing is very genuine. We're both, working towards the same goals. Nobody's playing along out of some kind of duty of marriage. We could not be married and still be working together,
But on a side note, it's much different being parent to your child than the employer to your child employee.
Right. It's similar to being married and just being co-workers. Yeah.
But worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. My son sees all the stuff that I do and he's like, Dad, I just want to own a Dunkin' Donuts. I can work really hard, and at the end of my shift, I can have a donut if I work really hard. I'm like, okay, do it.
Hey, but if you own it, you can have all the donuts you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Until you figure out after a month, you're like, you know what? Maybe I don't want so many more donuts.
A Dunkin' a day.
Well, so, kind of, obviously you guys are talking a little bit about, the family dynamic, obviously, and that presents its own unique challenges and, transitioning and moving. What would you guys say has been like a significant obstacle that you faced along your journey into, developing, your real estate portfolio and kind of getting that business going? What's a significant obstacle that you guys have had to overcome or kind of work through?
Initially, it was just getting into our first deal because we landed in Tennessee. We're part of an education platform. That's where we met our main partner, Darren. So we got one property here, and then things just started to roll in Tennessee. But prior to that, I went down to Tucson, flew down for a market tour. My mom and dad happened to live there. So I'm like, oh, yeah, this will be great. There'll be boots on the ground. And that's another thing. They were like, we're retired. We're not going to be your boots on the ground. So if you're going to do this, you're going to, I'm like, okay, cool. I get you. No problem there. And then I went to Dayton, Ohio, flew down for a market tour. I did market tour Spokane. And then the first deal landed in Tennessee here. And I was familiar enough with the market because it's the home turf of the education platform. My partner lives here. So, vetting out the market one step further to be comfortable with it was pretty straightforward and easy. So from Alaska, it was difficult to get any kind of traction to actually purchase property.
And the difficulty of being apart, right? So once we finally got that first deal, he would come down here for 6 weeks at a time, and I would still be back in Alaska. And so that was a difficult dynamic as well, having that separation. For sure. So
I love this because then we get both sides you get kind of both ends of it, right? Like you get, this is why I actually really enjoy this dynamic of having you guys on.
Because by that time we had closed the shop. Kim had begun working full time. So we kind of switched roles. We were never a 2-income family. So we were lucky in that case. Once she went full time she was an office manager, I was able to quit and go real estate full time. So yeah, it was, that was how that was able to happen. But yeah, it sucked. I mean, I'm staying in an extended stay, it's $30 a night, eating Domino's.
Yeah. So all of that is perfectly normal in my house. I know Steve has a totally different story. I'm away from home. No one likes it, but we're totally accustomed to it months and years at a time.
Oh, yeah. No, we weren't. I think for me, that was my biggest challenge. Was the being apart, because this is at the same time that both of our kids left the house, right? So I was like totally empty nest. I lost the kids and the husband. It was just me and the dog. It was, and I was like, well, wait a minute, that was a big challenge to overcome.
Yeah, for sure. So what I want to hear about is you guys started with turnkey assets, and maybe the education platform is kind of what guided you into one direction, but going into that platform that they are multifamily. How did you make the hop to deciding multifamily is like, the real estate asset that we want to pursue? This is going to be the one that works for us.
Yeah, I mean, the turnkey stuff was fine. We ended up with two houses in Memphis. They go vacant one, you got to do some repairs, your cash flow is gone for a year. So I very quickly realized, that limitation of the single family. I'm like, well, we're going to need 40 of these to reach any reasonable amount of cash flow. I'm like, oh, that's 40 roofs, 40 closings, 40 transactions.
Yeah, so
this was all just
scale.
Right, exactly. And we were just buying retail. So we were buying from an operator that bought them, rehabbed them, managed them, and it was kicking out $200 or $300 in cash flow. So I'm like, okay, that's not going to work. And then we dipped our toe into multifamily as a limited partner in a syndication. That was the one in Indiana. So that was our first look behind the curtain of what's this all about. That was a good experience just to see more of all the infrastructure and paperwork behind a syndication. I'm like, oh, we're getting a check quarterly. Like, this isn't so bad. It's just, I try to be very objective about it. I'm like, if this is going to work, it's got to have a certain amount of scale to it. And so you just kind of commit to that idea. And we spent a ton of time on the education because that was about all I could do from in Alaska. I wasn't able to go tour property. I couldn't be boots on the ground. So I just went down, all the podcast books, rabbit holes. I was in 2 education courses. One was more mom and pop orientated, and then the other one was more syndication related. So I realized at some point, we didn't come from a position of wealth. We're very working class. At some point, we were going to run out of our own capital. So to continue to scale, I figured syndication was going to have to come into play at some point. So we went down those tracks simultaneously with 2 different education platforms. But there was, I don't know if there was ever a moment we just stuck with the tract of multifamily. And
I think that's partially too. Part of the education platform, they're like, pick your lane and then stay in your lane.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we're still constantly fighting the shiny penny syndrome. And I'm very comfortable. That was the one thing. There was many good things about the W-2 job that I had for so long, but one of the things that I got out of that was I really enjoyed knowing exactly what I was doing and being comfortable. And, when things were second nature into what you're doing, there could be some danger to that, but I think it's more of an advantage that, the comfort level that comes with knowing something well.
Predictability and
yeah, right. And that's kind of how we approach markets a little bit. We're very comfortable in Eastern Tennessee, Johnson City, Knoxville, Chattanooga, and I think that's a huge advantage to have over people you might be competing with, and also just for partnerships. That's we have a syndication in Kansas. I don't know everything about that market, but our partner is boots on the ground there, grew up there. And so I'm comfortable with that intense market knowledge. It's just through somebody else. So,
where in Kansas are you guys at?
It's outside of Wichita. It's Mulvane.
Well, you guys just teed up my next question. How have partnerships advanced your career and your efforts in multifamily? I guess kind of in general, and then as a husband and wife team, do you think that you have an advantage over other partnerships?
We were open to partnerships. It never really bothered me. I think some people want to do it all themselves. I think that's a tough road to take, especially if you want to grow fairly quickly. And there's only, I really do believe there's only so many things that you could be very good at, and other people have to fill those other seats. So that, it's kind of our partnership with Darren and Kim. I do a lot of analysis, underwriting, asset management. Kim does all or most of our marketing. She does all of our back end stuff for the podcasts and our meetups, all the CRM, emails, blogs, all of that stuff that you don't realize is happening, but is hugely important and nobody gets enough credit for it. That's Kim's role. And then Darren is a really good networker. He's better with day-to-day contractor communications, knows a bit more about the rehab process just in general. And, he's also more of the money raiser side of when we do have deals that are active. So
It's
got to split those roles up and own them.
It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. Yeah, it's a ton of work.
I've met one person yet that says like they want to do it all themselves. Well, have you done a deal? Like, well, not yet, but I got this. I can do this myself. Like, okay.
Yeah.
And even if you could do it all yourself, so you get the full pie versus a slice of it, but like, how many deals are you doing a year by yourself? I couldn't even imagine.
Wow.
And the education platform was great for the network because that's how we got into the deal in Kansas. Is we've got some agency experience. Darren is known as a networker and money raiser to some extent, and so we were able to bring some of my asset management stuff and some agency experience, and then Darren's networking and money raising ability. That's kind of what we brought to the table because it was an agency assumption. So we helped fill a role that somebody else lacked. Otherwise, we all get together fine. And we just, they had a need. We were able to fill it. We all get along. Yeah, let's do a deal. The deal looks good.
And I think, Matt, too, as far as being a husband and wife partnership, I don't know. I think it is an advantage because we've been together for a long time.
A million years.
It's not quite a million, but it's a long time. And so we have an unspoken communication. So when we're at an event and something happens or we need, you can't remember somebody's name. You have somebody there who knows, hey,
I need an assist.
Hey, Steve.
Absolutely.
Hey, Steve, this is my husband, Greg. How are you? Or, oh, I'm sorry. I don't think we've met, Matt. My name is Kim. And then he's like, yes. It is more difficult to do, I think, if you're a not married couple. So we can see that. You could certainly do that if you aren't a married couple, but we spend all of our time together. So I think that's helpful. And we can do different things, right? So if we have a meetup and Greg can't go, I can go. There was an event this past weekend. He was out of town. I went. So it's that ability to completely trust somebody else to do what you would normally do.
Yeah, I was going to say too.
My go-to is I was going to shoot you an email or something. How did you spell your name again?
Oh, that's good.
That's a good one.
If I ever ask you how to spell your name,
it's like Jim.
Well, exactly. That's when I shoot myself in the foot when they're like.
The other thing I do, John Smith. The other thing I do is I'm like, I am so sorry. I am trying so hard. Can you help me remember your name? Sometimes.
You can be honest about it, but yeah. I'm a bit of an introvert in crowds. I'm much better than I was 3 years ago. Starting to meet up helped a lot with that. Doing the podcast, I'm much better than I was, but I'm still not great at it.
Yeah.
Hey, you get better, right? Like that's the thing. Like every day. No, it's good. I was thinking about it when you guys were talking about the if you had to do all of this stuff solo, like you'd be so frustrated. I was thinking it's the same thing as your point earlier, Greg. You basically build something that you really can't step away from because it's just you, right? You're kind of in the same boat. You just, you're self-employed kind of deal, right? Because if you never systematize and you never offload, there was, kind of that things to somebody else, you're really just doing, the same thing, just it's got a different suit on it,
and you're not scaling.
Right. It's going to be so much more difficult. Yeah. So I'm super glad that we've, our partnerships, each of us has strengths and weaknesses, and you just kind of leverage the strengths and shore up the weaknesses, and we'll fill the holes as we need to and kind of truck along. And we've been able to move a lot faster, partnering and
sure.
teaming up. So that's huge.
Yeah, that's where I was getting at is kind of quite literally, you guys have a marriage. But whenever you're choosing partners, 3 to 5 years minimum for a real estate deal, like these are marriages.
Oh, for sure.
Trying to fill each other's weaknesses. And any tips on searching for partners, kind of things that you should look for, maybe things that you would avoid in partnering up with somebody?
Just trust your gut type thing. If something's telling you something's a little off, don't go down that path. We haven't had much problems. We've had a couple though. And in retrospect, I remember thinking to myself, something's not sitting right with me. Could be coincidence. I don't know. And just take it slow, get to know somebody, if you can hang out with them, get to know them as a person, because social media is one thing. And then when you get in person, sometimes it can be something entirely different, either good or bad. You might just be like, oh, this guy's just a regular Joe who really knows his stuff and talks a game, and he's absolutely approachable and he's not out of reach, or she's not out of reach. Yeah, just be authentic and genuine
and patient.
And patient. Yeah, there's a lot of patience. Be very understanding. Things don't always go well, and that's just part of it.
So date before you get married.
Yeah, date before you get married. Right.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are just in a rush, right? Especially if you haven't had your first deal. You really want that first deal and you really want it. And 100%, absolutely, I get that. But again, it's 3 to 5 years. Are you going to want to talk to this person daily, maybe?
Yeah.
I mean, you're connected to them for a long time, and disentangling yourself from that deal is a giant difficulty, right? And not just for the deal, but I think people fail to realize that we are a small community. I mean, there's not a whole big ton of us doing that, and word leaks around. You don't have to say a word. People see and they know what's going on. So being careful and talking to other people, right? Hey, I'm thinking about doing a deal with Matt. What do you think?
Yeah, vet people as much as you can. I think I'm better at this than some people, is taking the emotion out of it. I can pretty easily do that. Just like, we just have to do this work, whatever. Maybe I'm a little bit better at that than I realize, but it can get emotional at times, and just trying to be very level-headed and identify what needs to be accomplished and just work towards it. Because there's been numerous times I'm like, we're screwed, and then you have to get on the phone and have a very difficult conversation, and it's all worked itself out in the end. But yeah, sometimes it's just like, all right, we have to do this now. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah. And Greg, I think that you hit it earlier. Inevitably, you're going to hit some kind of snag in this business, because it's a lot of work, a lot of moving pieces. If you're not partnering with someone with similar values, or someone that like, and trust, those problems, you're going to have very different ideas of how to handle them. And Kim, like you just said, like, your reputation's on the line. If you rush into a deal with someone because you want to get that first deal, and their way around a solution is like something that the rest of us are like not okay with,
right?
That's going to follow you. And in this business, kind of one bad deal and you're done.
It can be. And we always talk about too, we say, is this the kind of business person I want to be? Is this how I want to handle whatever the situation is?
Yeah.
Not is it a good money? Is it good this? Is it good that? Is this the kind of business person I want to be? Yeah.
I think that the money is just kind of ancillary, a perk.
It's nice for sure, but yeah, I think you're right. It's a people business for sure.
So you guys have scaled up pretty quickly within the last couple of years, pretty substantial portfolio. COVID, we've been asking everybody, how have you guys changed your assumptions and portfolio management? What has COVID done to you guys' business?
I'll let Greg take that one.
From an operations side, we've been very fortunate. It hasn't been a huge hiccup for us. Collections have been fine generally. The 5th of the month doesn't matter to too many people anymore. So rent continues to be later than we want, but by the end of the month, it's looking pretty good. The specific COVID related instances have been very few. Most of our collections are just 2 or 3 units on the rent roll, which is the way I think it always is. It's kind of ebbed and flowed a little bit, like things would get a little behind, and then a stimulus check would happen or something would happen, everybody would get caught up. But generally now, we're doing fine. As from the underwriting point of view, I expected that we would see some kind of easing up on pricing. That never happened. The only thing that I saw ease up was a little more movement in going under contract. Hard money down day one kind of went away. People were willing to have longer closing times initially, but even that's kind of reverted back to just as crazy as it ever was. So we never stopped touring, we never stopped looking, we never stopped making offers. What was that, Matt?
I was just saying business as usual. You kept
pretty much
the same rent growths, reversion cap rates.
Yeah, we have a couple value adds here in Johnson City. We got over our pro forma rents. Demand is fine. unexpectedly out of the whole pandemic thing. This region is getting a lot of growth that we didn't write in, the kind of attention that we're getting now. So we're fortunate that we're in that position.
But I think your underwriting has changed depending on where we're going with lending.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it changed a lot because with the COVID reserves and stuff, we started to look at community bank financing a whole lot more because it was less restrictive. I mean, the amount of money that you had to bring to a deal, especially in some of the tertiary markets, for a little while there, it got very restrictive. It actually, agency debt was kind of taken off the table basically for a while in some of the tertiary markets we look in, because you're at 70% LTV, 18 months P&I. It's just, you're just bringing a ton of money to the table.
Yeah, it kills the deal.
So it killed the deal. So, and then we also just started to look more at JV stuff. We always have, but just for simplicity's sake, with so many unknowns, prefer to work with a smaller group than a very large group. Yeah, we ended up doing one JV, and the Kansas City was a syndication.
I went to school in Kansas City. Big fan.
Or it's not Kansas City, Wichita.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Kansas City would be fine though.
Yeah.
It's like, Wichita, I like that place too. No,
Wichita's fine.
Have you started taking a harder look at your tenant base, looking at the leases for essential jobs or collections of mid-size?
No, we use third-party management. We are looking to take it in-house. It's more difficult that we found to make those kind of changes with third-party management because they don't want to change the rules for one property out of their portfolio of 1,500 units, which I completely understand. They're running a business as well. So getting them to do everything that we want to do has been a little hit and miss. So we're looking to bring it in-house.
Yeah, we've had a little bit of pushback at times with that too. We've had some good success though, I think, working with property managers who were more, or they were at least open to, hey, look, we're just trying to better, our business. If that can benefit you guys also, then we'd love to be able to do that. We've got some new ideas, and hey, we'd love to want to implement some of these different strategies in terms of, leasing or marketing or, whatever, security deposit alternatives and that kind of deal, right? Sure. So, and most of them have been pretty receptive, but yeah, that's not without some pushback. Because exactly to your point, Greg, like, hey, I've been working in this lane for the last, however long. This is a family business, and we're not going to change it. It's worked for decades, and it's like, well, but we've also never run through a pandemic like this. So, you kind of have to be
right. I mean, yeah, and actually, they've been very good, especially through the pandemic. They're very proactive, so, there's trade-offs, and for many reasons, and they're not all negative about our third-party manager. We just think we can do a better job for ourselves by taking it in-house.
And I think we saw a similar thing with the pandemic. Is we sent out, here's the resources, and rents never really dropped. So pretty good. Happy about that.
Well, this is what a time to put it to test, right? Like multifamily and asset classes that. Hey, this is why you're buying them, right? Like for times like this. And so we put it to the test, and same thing. Like,
right. Exactly. I mean, it weathered this storm. It's pretty good.
That's a pretty strong testimony. And we were the same way. We still kind of just trucked through, or, still looking at deals. And last year was our best year to, yet, and continued to move forward. So that's great. Well, yeah. Okay. Well, every episode we like to do a little bit of kind of as we wind down a little bit, some fire round questions, kind of a unique here. I'll put these questions out, and I'd actually love to get individually your responses. And so,
double fire round, first one.
Right on.
Like rapid fire.
Right. Alternate who answers first. So we don't, nobody's influenced by the
Actually, you guys are upstairs and downstairs, so you're going to write it on the whiteboard.
Right on and show it.
You're going to hold it up. The newlywed game.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, you guys ready?
I think so.
All right, very cool. All right, well, we'll ladies first, and so we'll go with Kim first. So, Kim, what's the best book that you recommend other than Rich Dad Poor Dad?
I'm going to go with Daring Greatly by Brene Brown.
Okay, interesting, very cool. All right, great. How about How about you?
I'm going to guess what he's going to, well, I'm going to, I was going to, but never mind. It would.
You can guess.
But then you're going to, I don't know if you'll say the same answer.
Yeah, I'm going to say a different one. So you're wrong.
To one of us.
Yeah, that's true.
There you go. I'll send it in the chat. That's what I was going to do.
Does it have to be business related or do you care?
No. Yeah, it's okay.
I'm going to go with, I usually say The Giving Tree, which is, you guys got kids. Wrong. It's a fantastic book. It's not really a business book. Now I'm going to go with As a Man Thinketh, because I started reading that one yet again.
It's a great book.
And I just like how consolidated it is. It's so simple. So I hit that one.
Kim guessed Deep Work.
Oh, well, that's part of, yes, that's true too. I just picked that up again and reread all my highlights. I love that book. That's more about the execution and get stuff done for sure. Yes, I'm implementing.
You can never have too many book recommendations, so we'll plug them all.
Yeah. That one is really good for business though. Deep Work for sure.
Ooh, very good. So we'll flip flop here then. So Greg, what's your superpower?
Coming up with answers quickly. No, I'm just kidding.
I was like, that's ironic.
Yeah,
that's
that's ironic.
I'll go with like analysis and underwriting. That's kind of my jam, I guess, in our partnership. Although Kim will admit, so will Darren. I'm trying to keep my cynicism down to a reasonable level, and that comes into underwriting. I don't know. I'll kind of leave it there, but yeah, that's I enjoy it. I actually enjoy it, so that's handy when you have to do it. Yeah, but it's one of those things like, oh, they're just numbers. I mean, there is so much nuance to underwriting that I think is under-recognized. Yeah,
yes.
It is. But at the same time, we're projecting the future, which is who had the pandemic on their pro forma?
Certainly not us.
Yeah, we didn't either.
That's good on a team, though. Someone that can see past the excitement of a deal and poke holes in it.
That's him.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's like, okay, here's our underwriting. Let's break it. But
you need that.
We got some other people that we bounce stuff off, and we try to underwrite separately. I mean, we really try and just like, I don't want to be right. I want to be reasonable or something like that. My underwriting doesn't have to be the underwriting we use. We have to use the right underwriting or the most defensible. That's the term that I've heard recently. Instead of conservative, you need to have defensible, precise underwriting. And that's kind of how I've been thinking more about it in the past couple of weeks.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah. And to Matt's point too, like this is the power of partnerships, because we've got a couple of partners and it's like, well, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, I can't wait. I got some days off. I'm going to spend time in Excel and, working on my spreadsheets. And it's like, I'm glad that you're that guy, because that is not me. You know what I mean? So,
oh yeah.
So that's powerful. No, that's good. All right. So Kim, what's your superpower?
I'm going to go with patience. After raising kids and being married for 26 years and being a substitute teacher, all of those things, it's being patient. So I think that's my superpower.
That is a superpower. Very cool. All right. So, and then we'll go back to you, Kim. So what's the biggest lesson that you've learned, over your career, and it could be, with the management, with, now with the real estate, like, even with parenting, what's the biggest besides patience?
Right. How to end something gracefully. So when we had to close our business, we had a lot of, it was consignment. So we had people's money that we had to return. We had things that we had to do, getting out of the lease, all of these pieces, learning how to end something gracefully, I think is the biggest lesson that I have learned.
I like that. That's actually really good. How about for you, Greg?
Vet your contractors. There's an open wound that will be closing here soon. Yeah, that's definitely one. Very specifically, if we had vetted a specific person a little bit more, there was stuff in the newspapers that we would have found out that I would have, gone the other direction. But that, this is first deal lessons. Mm-hmm. So, and the other one I would think would be is like, you have to ask. And so that, that goes back to like, sometimes there's just phone calls that have to be made, difficult questions that have to be asked, and you just have to do it.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. And that's a huge one too. The contractors, and like you said, that's kind of early deal for me too. It's like they can make or break your deal, and that can be really difficult if it's let's say a single family or something, but you're thinking on a larger scale property. Thankfully, hopefully you catch it sooner rather than later, and a little easier to do that, I think, sometimes, but that doesn't come without obviously like that, some potential wounds and that kind of deal. So yeah, no, that's a good one.
Yeah. And having to ask, you never know, he might talk about that. I think that's in the Chris Voss Never Split the Difference book, where he's like,
I think you're right.
Could be holding hard at a price and you hit them with your low anchor. You have to ask, and they might be like, yeah, we'll take that price.
So what's your, they're like, what's your Greg price?
Yeah.
So I guess how you do it, right? Like,
Greg price? I told my son that the other day, I was like, as far as, I don't remember what the conversation was, but I was like, have you ever heard the squeaky wheel gets the grease? He's like, is that the loud kid in class gets in trouble? I was like, yeah, something like that. Something like that. Asking. Let them tell you no. Maybe they'll tell you yes.
Right. You start with no, right? You always start with
start at no. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, that's right. And then they feel protected. That's it. All right. That's good. So back to you, Greg. For the busy working professional, is working towards trying to get, financial freedom, trying to set themselves up for something more, what advice do you have for them?
I was reading this earlier off your printout. I think it was just, go down the rabbit hole or really look into something. If you're interested in real estate or crypto or NFTs or whatever you're thinking might be an avenue, spend a significant amount of time looking into it and try and get to know it. And we're 5 or 6 years in, and I'm still learning stuff. So don't expect that you're even going to get a full understanding in 5 Discord articles and 14 YouTube videos. It can take some time. So yeah, be patient, but pursue what you're interested in and try and get comfortable with it.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier you started in syndication as an LP. Is that something that you suggest people who are thinking about becoming operators do?
Yeah, I think so. We did like every financial trick in the book to get capital release so that we could start doing the real estate business. And so we just deployed some of it because it was still fairly early. I'm like, I'm not ready to take something down myself, but let's deploy some of this so it's just not sitting around. And I think that's a very good way. Unfortunately, we were with an operator that was very transparent, and you get the Dropbox full of documents, and I'm the type that, reads that stuff. So I found it very beneficial just to kind of, see what the process looks like while at the same time, hey, I'm getting a quarterly check.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
Yeah. I mean, you can, take a small opportunity to pay yourself to learn. And now, with crowdfunding and things like that, you don't have to be dropping tens of thousands of dollars to peek through that. You can do it with 5 or 10 grand.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, true. Yeah. And to your point earlier about, dive into your research. You mentioned Bitcoin earlier too, or cryptocurrency. I was listening to a good interview recently with Rob Paul and Michael Saylor, and he's, kind of the same thing. He's this guy, MIT guy, pilot, Air Force guy. And, he's just jumped in and all these different things, super sharp, but it's like, well, you won't know until you're trying, once you hit those things that try, like you hammer away at it, like that. You're going to find that what makes you successful, but you got to get out there. You got to do your homework. You got to do your research, and don't expect it to come overnight. So yeah, no, that's
yeah. And that's like what we learned, when we had the retail store. We did an SBA loan, and they're like, you have to do this business plan, blah, blah, blah. We did all this stuff. You open the doors, that stuff goes right out the window because now you're operating. So hopefully, you do want a roadmap. Absolutely. You do want to have things that you want to accomplish, but, and it was actually Kim's grandfather, I think, when we were going through this process, he just finally laid it out. He goes, they're going to loan money to you because they think you have enough assets that they can get their money back. And they want to see that you can put together a reasonable plan. I'm like, oh, okay. That's about all it comes down to, huh? He's like, yeah.
Yeah.
You got good enough credit. You got good enough credit. You got enough assets that they can take back, and you did the work. But now that you open the doors, now you're actually doing it. It's completely different than your pro forma.
To that end, it sounds like you would definitely recommend either getting a mentor or doing some sort of education platform or something.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think, we've spent a little bit of money on education, thousands of dollars over the years.
Yeah.
But, if you spend 10, 15 grand on education, one decent deal will get you that back.
Itself.
And, most of the criticisms about education are from people that never executed on it.
Yeah. Bought into the guru plan and didn't
get rich
with it. Yeah.
Didn't get rich. Yeah.
Yeah. Wasn't the magic ticket. Well, Kim, I want to give you the same opportunity, for the busy working professional. What advice would you have? Somebody's working towards financial freedom, trying to better their position for their family, for their life. What kind of advice do you have for them?
Two things. I think partnerships, trust, finding those partners and trust them, whether it's your spouse or it's somebody else that is working towards those same goals. It doesn't have to be the person that you live with. So finding somebody that you can partner with and that person that you can trust and talk to and be honest with. And I think those, if you can find someone to do those things with, then the rest of it will fall into place for you. There's lots of steps. I don't mean to make it sound very simple and straightforward. Just find the right person, but getting out there and finding those partnerships, and then trusting yourself and your partner, and being clear in that communication and what you want and need. And I think that will go a long way.
Awesome. Well, I want to, as we wrap up here, I just want to thank you guys for sharing some time with us and your wisdom and insight. And, like I said, I was super curious to have you guys on, especially because you're a couple, and, that's kind of close to me and kind of near and dear to my heart. I know there's a lot of other people out there, kind of in a similar situation. And so even just trying to strike that balance of, okay, well, yeah, how do we do this?
Right.
So yeah, it's cool getting a chance to hear kind of both sides of the coin and getting both of you guys input. So I love that. But as we kind of wrap up here, if our audience wants to reach out to you guys, learn a little bit more, get in touch, like what are the best avenues for them to be able to do that? How can they do that?
Yeah. Our website is realwealth.solutions. And from there, you can find our podcast on all of our social media links. That's probably the best bet to kind of land and see what we're all about. You can reach me at greg@realwealth.solutions if you want to shoot me an email. We're super transparent, love having conversations like this, very approachable, always willing to talk Tennessee. If I got a resource, you need it, you're more than welcome to it. We're firm believers in the pie is big enough. So yeah, nothing like helping somebody out.
Awesome. How about for you, Kim?
Actually, through the same things, except my email is kim@magpie-ventures.com. And yeah, I'm happy to talk to anyone.
You don't have your own Real Wealth Solutions email?
No.
Oh, sorry, guys. Well.
No, it's okay. Yeah, either way.
Start a petition.
Look, this is great. We learned something.
Yeah. We're going to have to start a petition for a real estate destination event in Alaska.
We've tried, and we're going to try again.
We've been thinking about it and started moving down that road. So
I'd love to be there if I can make it.
Yeah. From Hawaii, take the cruise up to Hawaii, or from Hawaii, meet up in Hawaii, launch from Hawaii, take the cruise up to Alaska.
Sounds perfect.
From 50 to 49.
There you go.
Sweet.
That'll be
awesome,
fun.
guys.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, guys, for jumping on with us today. We really, really appreciate having you guys on. And like I said, sharing your time, your wisdom with us. For our listeners, if you're interested in connecting with us, learning more, go to tricityequity.com. You can download our free guide to passive investing in multifamily. Definitely check out Kim and Greg's resources, of course. We'll leave those in the show notes for you guys, so you can check out their site and connect with them as well. To connect with like-minded investors, join our Facebook group. We have a group, Honolulu Multifamily and More, if you're not familiar. And if you found value in this podcast, please subscribe. Make sure you give us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you're listening to us. You can find us on all the platforms, and definitely check out their podcast as well, Real Wealth Solutions Podcast, I think it's really this, right? And if you know anybody else who might want to resonate with today's podcast, please make sure that you're sharing the episode with them. We'll see you guys next time. Aloha.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.